Thank you, John. Hische estongo, Mariah Hodifkados. Hi, my name is Mariah. I hope you're doing well today. I am a citizen of the Muscogee Nation. And the Mvskoke, how are you today? We say we hope you woke up well. We hope that your body is well. I stand before you today as one voice among the Muscogee and only one voice among Native America. Fun fact, I'm also German, Scottish, and Czech, which I'm sure was pretty evident when I walked out on the stage. That part usually stands out pretty clear. And so I stand before you today as someone who navigates the space between. In today's language, it would be multicultural, multiracial, biracial. And so if you navigate that space in between, you know what I'll be talking about today. But first, I want to acknowledge today that we are on Native land. In 1849, the city of Waco, where we are today, was founded. But a lot of times what we miss when we talk about Waco, in your city as well, is what happened before that foundation. We didn't begin there. There were people here before us. And so today, before we start this beautiful day together, we want to acknowledge and recognize the Tonkawa, the Tawakoni, the Waco, who are part of the Wichita affiliated, the Numina, who are the Comanche, and the Apache. These people stewarded this land so well. These people took care of this land, used this land for good, long before we were here today. I think the beautiful thing about being Native American is a lot of times we do focus upon the differences, and there is a lot of differences, very clear, and I can spend all day talking about those, but some of the things that really kind of unify us when you think about it is land. Trees. We find shade underneath the trees. We get away from them. I did last night during some rain, kind of darted from one space to the next. The same spaces that we do that today. The same trees, sometimes the exact same trees as Native nations also found shelter. The same spaces today where we have our friends over for a drink or in the backyard to have a barbecue. We watch our children play. We go to a park. We go watch games are the same spaces that Native Americans also found community and gathered with their people. The same spaces where those of you who have a faith place to go to, the same spaces where ceremonies were performed. And that is important for us to remember today. So thank you, Mado, to the Tawakoni, the Tonkawa, the Waco, the Apache, and the Comanche for stewarding this land so well that we call today as Waco, Texas. I have brown skin. Not sure if you can see that up here on the stage, but I have brown skin. And growing up, I had jet black hair. It's gotten a little gray over the years, okay? But imagine no gray, all jet black hair. And I looked a lot like a lot of the Native Americans around me. It's important to state that Native Americans also have black skin. They have white skin. But I looked like the majority of Native Americans around me. And I was home. I felt seen. I didn't have to explain anything to anybody. We just lived and we just existed. When I was outside of that space, I didn't feel the same way. I had words that were kind of shared about me, toward me, actions that were done to me, toward me, and it caused a lot of internal angst. And as a young adult, adolescent, I struggled, if I'm honest. I struggled with who I was. I can't get rid of my skin. I am who I am, but I just didn't feel comfortable in my own skin because I was not accepted by the people that I was around. And that was a struggle. I'm also Native American, and I'm a Christian. That's another space between that I navigate. I think I navigate it well today, but I didn't at one point. It was a struggle for the people around me, both native and non-native, how can you be indigenous and be Christian? Because the church has done a horrible job about unifying those two identities. And so that's my space between that I navigate. And it was years ago, that my husband was on staff at a church. And this was a Christian church, to be specific, okay? And we were having this conversation, and all of a sudden, the air shifted. You know what I mean? The tenseness kind of crept in, and my body reacted. If you are a person of color and you've been in a situation where you're about to enter a racialized experience, and they give you a heads up, you know what I'm talking about. Your body kind of tenses up, and you feel a little bit uneasy. And so I listened to this woman who was in a leadership position at this church go from a normal conversation to very intentionally causing harm with words and entering my space. I'm a very personal space kind of person. I'm not a hugger, okay? And she entered my space, and then she proceeded to let me know, to be paraphrased, how I was the issue for her, how my existence, my skin, was a problem for her and those like her, how what I represent causes division in my country, in my state, in my city, in the church that we were in. I represented something horrible for her. And she did not hold back on letting me know that. Sadly, I still had that mindset of allowing others to dictate how my space was going to be. I was still as confident as I was on so many aspects of my life. I still allowed others to speak into who I was. And so as a result, I just listened. And my body reacted. I'm sure my face reacted, because I can't hold that back sometimes. But my body reacted. And so I shared that and told that to my husband, and we went and talked to the most senior position of our church. And his wife, who was a friend, ex-friend, looked at me very genuinely, with all of the intent to be supportive and loving. And she looked at me and said, Mariah, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that she felt like she had a right to come to you and share that with you. But I need you to know, she should have stopped right there. But she said, I just need you to know that for us, and she was talking about her and her husband, we don't even think of you as an Indian. We see you as one of us. And I walked away from that moment almost accepting the overt racism that I had experienced, because now I had entered something that hurt even more. The rejection of my identity as a Native Christian. In the mind's eye of those around me that I thought were close and were friends, they could not see me as both. I must only be this, and I could no longer have nativeness. Sure, my skin was brown, and I reflected that publicly and visually, but internally, she had separated those. And I realized I still was allowing my circumstances and my surroundings to dictate that space between for me. And I needed to change that. I'm very different today. You don't have to talk to me for very long to know that I will no longer allow someone to speak to me that way or dictate what my space is going to look like. I own that space between for me. And I don't have to choose my nativeness in order to follow Jesus Christ. For me, they beautifully dance together, and they are in complete alignment. And the way that I got there was because I did not regard anybody around me, honestly. This was not their process. This was me. Who am I? And I knew that I needed to view myself through the lens of the only person who created me. And so it became a conversation and a process for me and my Creator to walk through the beauty that I represent. Because for me, very clearly, I'm a very big person on biblical text, okay? I even went and studied it, which is kind of crazy. So what I did learn is I was created. And there's this little line that's really important that a lot of times we skip over in our faith conversations. I'm called good. And that was it for me. It didn't matter what people around me said about me. It didn't matter how they thought and felt when I was there, what I represented. It just didn't matter to me because I knew to whom I belonged. And I was called good. And if I'm created and I'm called good, it does not matter what somebody else feels like I am. That's their struggle. And that's their problem to work through. And I will share some things to help you work through that. Let's be very clear. I step into those spaces intentionally. But for me, I owned my space. Again, the church has caused a lot of harm towards BIPOC people, with my experience. And it was very important for me to be very intentional on when I talk about my belief. I'm not disregarding other people's beliefs, but I am talking about who I have decided to follow. And I have decided to follow this man named Jesus. But it's not this Americanized Jesus, let's be very clear. It's not this national Jesus that has been weaponized in order to do harm to people of color. It is not this Jesus who is white. Sorry. It is not this Jesus that has been misused in order to suppress and oppress. It's not Jesus. Brown-skinned, dark brown-skinned, Jewish man, a carpenter, coming in the most humblest ways. And I think a lot of times we forget that. And so I try to be a reminder to people for that. And I try to stay true to that. I recently added author to my title, which is kind of weird. And I had the opportunity to write about my faith, my identity, and how those work together. And I'm not going to share it all, but I am going to share a bit of a liturgy that I wrote. And it was honestly a conversation, not with me and anybody else, but between me and God, because that's who created me. And I'm called good. And that's how I view myself, through that lens. When others around me always say that I'm different, or I'm a problem, or my existence is an issue, I view myself through the Creator. God of the removed generations, we are yours. With gentle breath, you formed us to reflect your image and saw that we are good. It is through your reflection that we are seen and loved by you. When we are removed, when we are disregarded, you whisper, I am with you, as a reminder to whom we are cherished and loved. It is by your stabilizing hand that you keep my head raised high and my eyes fixed on you. And I see who we are. We are not poverty to you. We are not addiction to you. We are not retained to the past to you. We are not sanitized history to you. We are not a societal burden to you. And our culture is not mocked by you. By you I was created, and I am uplifted, and you keep my head raised. And it's by you that I find my strength. Mvskoke, Paksangi, Mochinete Paxi. Muscogee people, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Mado.